Welcome, race fans, to a journey into the heart of NASCAR's most terrifying and unbelievable moments. We're not just talking about a spin-out or a bump against the wall. We're talking about the kind of crashes that leave you breathless, the ones that defy belief, the ones that have shaped the very history of the sport. These are the moments that remind us just how dangerous this sport can be and how courageous its drivers are. From fiery explosions to cars flying into the catch fence, we're going to look at the wildest NASCAR crashes you won't believe actually happened. Let's start with a term you've probably heard if you've ever watched a race at Daytona or Talladega, the big one. It's a phrase that sends a shiver down the spine of any driver, and for good reason. The big one isn't just a crash, it's a multi-car pileup, a chain reaction of chaos that can take out a huge portion of the field in the blink of an eye. But where did this ominous term come from? It wasn't always part of the NASCAR vocabulary. Back in the day, these massive wrecks were simply called major or terrific crashes. It wasn't until 1997 that the legendary Dale Earnhardt himself, after a last lap crash at the Pepsi 400, called it the Big Wreck. The name stuck, and by 1998, the media had picked it up. But it was on October 11th, 1998, during the Winston 500, that ESPN commentator Bob Jenkins uttered the words that would become iconic. This is the big one that we had hoped we would not have. And then, in the 2001 Daytona 500, another commentator, Darrell Waltrip, cemented the phrase in NASCAR history when he yelled, "It's the big one, gang! It's the big one!" as 18 cars piled up in a massive wreck. From that moment on, the big one became the official and dreaded name for these catastrophic events. Now let's travel back to the 2001 Daytona 500. The race was already on edge, with a massive 18-car pileup on lap 173 that saw Tony Stewart's car go airborne and flip down the backstretch. But the real tragedy, the one that would change NASCAR forever, was yet to come. On the very last lap, in the final turn, the unthinkable happened. Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport, was involved in a crash. From the outside, it looked like a routine wreck, a hard hit against the wall, something these drivers experienced countless times. But this was different. Earnhardt's car, after making contact with Sterling Marlin's car, veered down the track and then shot up towards the outside wall, hitting it head-on at over 150 miles per hour. The impact was brutal. Ken Schrader, who was also involved in the crash, was the first to check on Earnhardt. When he looked inside the black number 3 car, he knew it was bad. He frantically signaled for the safety crew. The world held its breath. Dale Earnhardt, the 7-time champion, was pronounced dead at the Halifax Medical Center a short time later. The cause of death was a basilar skull fracture, a devastating injury that occurred because his head whipped forward violently upon impact. At the time, head and neck restraints were not mandatory in NASCAR. Earnhardt's death was a wake-up call. It was a tragedy that forced the sport to confront its safety issues head-on. In the aftermath, NASCAR mandated the use of head and neck restraints like the HANS device and made countless other safety improvements to the cars and the tracks. Dale Earnhardt's death was a heartbreaking loss, but his legacy lives on in the safety measures that have saved countless lives since that dark day in Daytona. Fast forward to the 2020 Daytona 500. Another last-lap crash, another heart-stopping moment. Ryan Newman, a veteran driver known for his toughness, was leading the race just a few hundred feet from the finish line. He was on the verge of winning the biggest race of his career, but in the world of restrictor plate racing, nothing is guaranteed. As Newman battled for the lead, his car was turned from behind. It slammed into the outside wall, then went airborne. What happened next was a terrifying sequence of events that seemed to last an eternity. Newman's car was hit by another car while it was in the air, sending it into a series of violent flips. It landed on its roof, skidded across the finish line in a shower of sparks, and then burst into flames. The silence that fell over the speedway was deafening. For what felt like an eternity, there was no word on Newman's condition. The safety crew worked frantically to extinguish the fire and extricate him from the mangled wreckage. It was a scene of pure devastation. Miraculously, Ryan Newman survived. He was taken to a local hospital with a head injury, but he was alive. Just a few days later, he walked out of the hospital, hand in hand with his 2 daughters. It was a moment of pure joy and relief for the entire NASCAR community. Newman's crash was a testament to the safety advancements that had been made in the sport since Dale Earnhardt's death. The stronger chassis, the improved catch fences, and the mandatory head and neck restraints all played a role in saving his life. Today, Ryan Newman keeps the wrecked car from that crash as a trophy, a reminder of how close he came to death, and a symbol of his incredible survival. Let's rewind to 2015, again at Daytona, the Coke 0400. The race had just ended, with Dale Earnhardt Jr. taking the checkered flag. But as the cars crossed the finish line, all hell broke loose. A massive crash erupted in the middle of the pack, sending cars spinning and crashing in every direction. In the midst of the chaos, Austin Dillon's number 3 car was launched into the air. It flew over several other cars and then slammed into the catch fence with a terrifying force. The impact was so violent that it tore a huge hole in the fence, a fence that is designed to keep the cars on the track and protect the fans in the grandstands. Dillon's car was ripped to shreds. The engine was torn out, the wheels were gone, and the car was reduced to a mangled mess of metal. It landed back on the track upside down, a smoldering wreck. The crowd was in shock. It was one of the most violent crashes anyone had ever seen. The debris from the crash was scattered across the track and into the grandstands. Several fans were injured, but thankfully, none of them seriously. And what about Austin Dillon? Incredibly, he walked away from the crash. He was a little bruised and battered, but he was alive. It was another miracle, another testament to the safety of these cars. The catch fence, while heavily damaged, did its job. It absorbed the energy of the impact and prevented the car from going into the stands. Dillon's crash was a stark reminder of the dangers of restrictor plate racing and the fine line these drivers walk between triumph and tragedy. Now let's go way back to 1987. Talladega Superspeedway, the Winston 500. This was the era of unrestricted horsepower, a time when cars were reaching speeds of over 200 miles per hour. It was a recipe for disaster, and on this day, disaster struck. Bobby Allison, a NASCAR legend, was leading the race when his car blew a tire on the front stretch. The car was instantly turned sideways, and then it went airborne. It flew into the catch fence, tearing down nearly 100 feet of it. The car was destroyed, but the real concern was for the fans. The debris from the crash was sent flying into the grandstands, injuring several spectators. Thankfully, no one was killed, and Bobby Allison, in a testament to his toughness, walked away from the crash with just a few bruises. But the incident had a profound impact on NASCAR. It was a wake-up call. The speeds were getting out of control, and something had to be done. In the aftermath of the crash, NASCAR introduced restrictor plates, which are designed to reduce the horsepower of the engines and slow the cars down. It was a controversial decision, but it was a necessary one. The 1987 Talladega crash was a turning point in NASCAR history. It was the day that the sport finally said, enough is enough. Let's shift gears to the NASCAR Truck Series. The year is 2000. The place is Daytona. The race is the Daytona 250, and the driver is Jeff Bodine. On lap 57, Bodine was involved in a horrific crash near the start-finish line. His truck was sent flying into the catch fence, and it burst into a massive fireball. The truck was completely destroyed, and it was hard to believe that anyone could have survived such a crash. But Jeff Bodine is a fighter. He was pulled from the wreckage and rushed to the hospital with a broken wrist, a broken cheekbone, a broken vertebra, and a concussion. But he was alive. It was a long and painful recovery, but Bodine eventually returned to racing. His crash was a brutal reminder of the dangers of racing and the incredible courage of the drivers who strap themselves into these machines every week. Let's revisit some of the most spectacular multi-car crashes that have defined NASCAR's reputation for chaos and unpredictability. The 2002 Aaron's 499 at Talladega stands out as one of the most devastating pileups in the sport's history. On lap 164, what started as a simple racing incident between Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Petty quickly escalated into a nightmare scenario. As the field stacked up behind them, Mike Wallace was forced to push Tony Stewart against the outside wall, triggering a chain reaction that would collect 23 cars in total. The list of drivers caught up in the mayhem reads like a who's who of NASCAR. Rusty Wallace, Terry Labonte, Mark Martin, Bill Elliott, Matt Kenseth, Bobby Labonte, and many others. Elliott Sadler took the biggest hit in the wreck, slamming into the corner of the inside wall on the right side with tremendous force. Meanwhile, Johnny Benson's car caught fire on pit road after the crash, requiring him to be pulled from his burning vehicle. Miraculously, despite the violence and destruction, all drivers involved escaped serious injury. It was a testament to the safety equipment and car construction that had evolved over the years. The 2003 Aaron's 499 at Talladega holds a special place in NASCAR crash history. On just the fourth lap of the race, Ryan Newman blew a tire entering turn 1, setting off what would become the largest recorded wreck in modern Cup Series competition at that time. Newman's car bounced off Mark Martin and smashed hard into the turn 1 wall, almost turning over. One of Newman's tires came off as he spun back down the track, and incredibly, the tire bounced off Ricky Rudd's hood, launched over the catch fence, and landed in a restricted access area outside the track. The mayhem that followed was unprecedented. Cars checked up behind Newman, who was spinning across the middle of the track, resulting in a massive 27-car pileup. The crash collected some of the biggest names in the sport, including eventual race winner Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tony Stewart, Jeff Burton, and Kyle Petty. It was a scene of utter devastation that took several minutes to unfold completely. The fact that no one was seriously injured in such a massive crash was nothing short of miraculous. The 2000 2005 Aaron's 499 provided yet another example of Talladega's capacity for chaos. On lap 132, Mike Wallace, Jimmy Johnson, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. got tangled up in the tri-oval, forcing Scott Riggs and Wallace to careen into the wall with tremendous force. The crash collected 25 cars in total, including Kyle Busch, Mark Martin, Ryan Newman, and Rusty Wallace. Our final story takes us to Texas Motor Speedway in 2008. The driver is Michael McDowell. It was a qualifying run, but it ended in a crash that was just as terrifying as any race incident. McDowell's car lost control and slammed into the wall at nearly 200 miles per hour. The car then went into violent barrel rolls, flipping over and over again before finally coming to rest. The car was completely destroyed, but once again the driver walked away. McDowell was shaken up but otherwise uninjured. It was another miracle, another testament to car safety. And it was another reminder that in NASCAR, danger is always present. These are just a few of the wildest crashes in NASCAR history. Each one is a story of survival, a testament to the courage of the drivers and the incredible safety of the cars. But they are also a reminder of the dangers of this sport and the fine line that these drivers walk every time they climb into the cockpit. They are the moments that make us hold our breath, the moments that we will never forget. These crashes have shaped NASCAR into what it is today. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the heart of NASCAR's most terrifying and unforgettable moments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible racing content. And remember, while we are fascinated by these incredible crashes, we must never forget the human element, the brave drivers who put their lives on the line for our entertainment every single weekend. Until next time, dedicated race fans.